All right, let's welcome in Coach Prevost, all-line coach from the University of South Dakota. Coach, welcome on again. Thank you
Yeah,
for
thanks.
doing this so quick.
For sure. Yeah, thanks for having me, Coach Steve.
Um, like I said, you come highly recommended from Coach Banster. I have to put that out there. So if you make his list, you've made it. You've made it.
You have to ask my wife if I made it or not. I don't know about that. So you'll see me making it when I'm vacuuming in my living room. That's what I always like to tell people.
Hey, this is my day off, so I'm allowed to do this, and then I also have to go do some stuff around here.
Yeah, that's the way it works, right? Everyone's like, "Oh, you coach football." Yeah, I do, and I'm also a husband.
Right. Because the past 2 days we've had a 7-on-7 lineman challenge. The last 2 days that the Chicago Bears run it.
Okay.
And it's at a high school. There were 16 teams there. I got to do that, from like 8 a.m. to 2 a.m. both days.
Yep.
I come home, I'm sunburnt. I got the farmer's tan. I've got the white feet going on with the calves being tan. I got to do that. So today's my day off. But it's like, well, since you're home.
Yeah. So, Coach Steve, you bring up a very valid point. And I love the way you say it. I get to, and that's what I tell my guys all the time. This is a get to thing, not a got to thing.
Right.
And it's very funny as coaches, like our hobby, like, yeah, I like playing golf and doing other things, but truthfully, part of our job is our hobby. Like you just went and watched high school kids at a 7-on-7 tournament to do your job. Like I just had an official visits camp. So I'm like, I've been gone for a week. So now I got stuff to do when I get home because, well, you've been gone doing whatever. Like, yeah, like I've been like, it's what pays our bills is this job. But we have such a great job. It's a hobby. So that also punishes us at home. And I try to use that against my wife. And I see hopefully some of the other coaches are like, yeah, I don't try it with your wife now because you will lose. Lost every time. But between us in this circle, all right, it works. It works.
Yes. But it's okay. Like, and the funny part was I coached all three sports: football, basketball, baseball. All three at different high schools, mind you. All three at different ones. So I said the summer will be slower because I won't be gone 7 a.m. to 3 working and then doing practice or a game. Well, of course, basketball and football are going on in June. So I'm gone still 8 hours. Well, I thought summer was less. And I said, Don't worry. Every Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I have nothing. It's just Monday through Thursday. Oh, good. But you're right. Like,
well, now you're doing podcasts.
Yeah, I started this. I started this February of 2020, and then COVID hit, and then there was no sports to talk about because I wanted just to talk about sports. And then other coaches were like on Twitter, and one said, "How do you start a podcast?" So I reached out to him. I was like, "Hey, you just this how you start it." Then they all started getting involved, getting coaches on. I said, "Well, hell, I'm going to get coaches on," and just that's what I've been doing. And so last year I got to do it in the spring because I wasn't as busy. And then I do baseball, and now I'm like, I have no time. And but yeah, I do podcasts, but this is like an hour of my time. If it doesn't bother me.
So you were actually into the podcasts before podcasts became cool at the end of February, beginning of March 2020.
I guess there was others doing it. Like I saw other high school coaches, like Coach Mackey was a big one I watched. Yeah. Coach Allball, he does the Chief Pigskin stuff. He was a head coach at a high school against me when I was in high school. So like I knew who he was. So I saw them do it and I was like, oh, I kind of want to do that.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I just like talking sports. I like talking, not necessarily football. I like talking everything. So I was like, that's what I'll do. And then, of course, I think I caused COVID because once I did that, then COVID hits. And it's like, well, Steve, now there's no sports to talk about. There's nothing going on. So I had to take the blame. I was like, well, maybe it's because I started one.
Yeah, you literally started a worldwide pandemic with your podcast.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, and that's a lot of weight to bear.
That's okay. I'm tall. I got broad shoulders. It's all good. But yeah, I don't know. Like podcasts were already kind of going on, and then I jumped on it, and then everybody else jumped on it, and then some, like Coach Banster, he did like right after I did. That's how I met him, was through coaches doing this. Then his took off, and I'm still here. His took off, but I'm right here. But that guy's crazy. He did like for a day or so. And I was like,
Yeah, no, I don't know him that great. I imagine he can't be married with kids. If not, it won't last long.
oh, he is. He's married with a kid.
Wild. Like, I don't know how he's getting away with this.
And he's a head football coach now. This will be his second year.
Yeah. Yeah. So good for him, man.
Oh,
So
yeah.
are you in Danville? Is that correct? That area?
I grew up by there.
Okay.
I grew up where Champaign and Danville are,
Yep.
right dab in the middle, almost right
Okay.
there. But now I live in the suburbs. I live up in Naperville.
Okay.
But yes, nobody's asked me that. Like by Danville, nobody knows what Danville is.
Oh, I worked at Western Illinois for 3 years.
Okay.
And my first full-time job was there. So I GA'd at Duluth and then got hired at Western Illinois. And since there is no football in Central Illinois that's any good outside of Rochester and Sacred Heart, they gave me that area to recruit, obviously.
Right.
So like I'm like looking at, high school preps. I'm like, this Danville team had a bunch of good records, but they're just really well coached. They didn't have actually good players. And then I went to the Decatur schools. That was an experience, coming from small town to that's a different style of life than I was used to. So it was a good learning experience. That central part of the state gives you a little bit of flavor of the world.
Yes.
It is. But yeah, that's how I know where Danville is. That's how I became accustomed to it.
Yeah, that's crazy. Nobody knows. I went to Eastern Illinois for college, and even that, you met a lot of people from the suburbs of Chicago. And so when they say, "Where are you from?" I can't tell them the small little town I'm from because they don't know what that is. So I have to say Champaign. I have to say like, "Oh, by Champaign," and they're like, "Oh, U of I." And I'm like, "Yeah." And if you say Danville, they go, "I don't know what that is." So I'd say Champaign. But it was the same thing with Chicago people. They couldn't say Naperville. I didn't know. I was like, I don't know where that is. Growing up in Central Illinois, I don't know. So they say Chicago.
Eastern Illinois, home of Jimmy John's.
Home of Jimmy John's. Yes.
Yeah. I'm full of a lot of useless information, Coach Steve. You'll find this out.
Well, that's where that happened. That's where Jimmy G went. That's where Tony Romo went. And people are like, what? I'm like, Sean Payton was there before. He would go out there and he visit all the time.
I mean, the coaches that they've had there, like either coach and or play there, is incredible.
Yes.
Like
Shanahan.
Yeah. It's like a quarterback's dream in there.
Yeah. I actually helped out with spring ball when Babers was there and Jimmy G. I walked on for a year, got my ass kicked. I was like, that's enough. Like it was.
So when we were at Western, we played Babers when they came to Macomb.
Mm-hmm.
We won. They weren't very good, but
yeah,
that was before Jimmy G got going.
Yeah, Coach Boo was there. They struggled for the last few years. And then Babers shows up and immediately they win the conference 2 years in a row. Then they saw the writing on the wall with Illinois budget cuts. And so he's like, got offered that Division I job. He goes, I'm gone. And everybody left. And,
well, as an O-line coach, and all good O-line coaches know this. I mean, and all good coaches know this. I coach football. All the rest of us, we can coach our butts off. But once you get a good quarterback, man, you are a way better football coach. All of us are better immediately.
Yeah, because he was there because Babers got there his third year. So his junior year is when Babers showed up. So before that, we had big offensive linemen, pro style, run the ball. Then Babers got there, and he brought that Baylor offense, and Jimmy could run a little bit, but not the way that offense is designed to run. And I'll never forget talking to some old linemen. They go, man, we have to run all the time. That ball is snapped in 10 seconds. They're not used to this because they were, 310 pounds or whatever, trying to run and move. But they also said, but man, if he can get rid of the ball quick, it doesn't matter. Like it makes our life a lot easier. So it is a good point. When you get a guy that can just get rid of the ball, your life's so much easier.
So we're a tempo team, and we snap the ball as fast as humanly possible. And we, I don't have a lineman under 310. Like my right guard is 358.
Wow.
Yeah, so he gets tired, but he goes the whole time. So when you start playing 90 plays in the game, and like our center was 360. So we got some large humans.
Well,
So
like what Babers ran into was you're dealing with linemen that have done that pro style for so long where they're huddling up. Now you're making them run, and they're not. That very first year they weren't used to it.
100%. There's so much that goes into it. Like it's like we just got our freshman here.
Right.
If you just make them do the stuff that's uncomfortable right away, it's like they don't know any different. Like, okay, I guess this sucks, but this is what we do.
Yeah.
But it's really hard when you take over a spot and then now you start asking guys to do things that are more difficult than they've done in the past, especially if they've had success in the past. To get them to buy into what you're doing is really, really tough.
Right. So you guys being up tempo with linemen, do you keep your individual drills that same tempo so it's just all free flowing into the same thing?
So like we start practice every day with like we call it like a double domination drill, 2 guys on 1. But I have them huddle up. Hey, we're gonna go to work today, because you know how it is, man. You have to give guys this day and age a pep talk literally every other moment.
Right.
I mean, you can say, "Well, it's ridiculous, we have to," or you can just not do it and get fired. Those are your 2 choices.
Right.
But and then I'll actually, after they break down, like to get like the tempo of practice going, they have to line up the drill before I turn back around. So like I'm ready to go. Otherwise, I just blow the whistle. We do push-ups and start practice over.
Right. Yeah. Because there was one high school I was at, they wanted to be up tempo, but I was offense coordinator, so I was kind of forced into being like, well, because I was coaching at Charleston High School where Eastern is. So Babers was there. So I guess the big craze was, well, we got to do this. And I try to tell the coaches there, like, I watched spring ball. I volunteered my time for spring ball. He has a stopwatch. You're snapping that ball 10, 12 seconds. There was one time, I'll never forget it. 3 times in a row, they snapped the ball at 15 seconds. He threw a fit. He was like, we're moving too slow. So they said, Steve, let's be up tempo. And I try to tell him, like, okay, well, here's what has to happen. All these drills have to be boom, boom, boom. They can't be slow.
Well, the other thing you have to, I think it's harder as you go lower in level, lower in finances, because every coach wants to coach. Well, if you want to be an up-tempo team, be good at it. You don't get to coach while the kids are on the field. You don't coach between plays. The coaching you do between plays is like wrangling cattle. Like you're chasing them to the line of scrimmage. You're like, that's really what you're doing. Like all your coaching points take place on film or when they get done with their series. There is no in-drive coaching.
Right.
And that's hard for some coaches to do. Like they have a hard time adapting to not making those corrections. Well, you can't. And then you also have to teach your kids how to self-correct a little bit and self-adjust, because, okay, well, if we need to slow down to fix something, now we're compromising really the foundation that we set our offense on.
Right. And then like for you guys, and you correct me if I'm wrong, you have spring ball to get adjusted to what the drills you're going to do in the summer. So even in the season, they kind of already know what's happening. Like, and it's easy for them.
Yeah. Like, and we over exaggerate it. So like he would do 8 to 10, like I feel bad for our defense. We're snapping the ball sometimes in like 4 seconds. Like if we don't, like the officials make you hold it. So like when we get into games as a coach, it's almost like, let's go.
Right.
Because like we're snapping the ball way quicker than, because we'll start off doing them on air. And literally, like as coaches, we're getting the ball back, putting it down as fast as possible, sprinting, snapping. And then we get into team reps, and we have our equipment guys do it. Once they put the ball down, they leave. There's the other hard part is too, when you get into like 4-minute situations, like as coaching, you're like, oh my gosh, but players get that way too. Like they lose a little bit, like they've been trained to go, 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 go. It's really hard for them to go, wait 25 seconds, and then go again.
Right.
So there's some disadvantages to it without question.
Yeah. But then what would happen was they said, okay, and I was offense coordinator, so you have to figure out how to signal it in as quickly as possible and all that stuff. Well, then I look over and I'm watching individual drills and they're stopping and breaking it down. And I said, well, okay, well, here's the issue. You want to go fast, but you can't have these drills be stopped, explained, and everything else. And they said, well, then, but we're supposed to coach and fix it. And I said, I know, but we're making this decision. We can't do this. You know, I act like I was smart at the time. I was the young offense coordinator. I'm like, well, this is the problem. And then quickly realized, well, maybe we're just not an up-tempo team then. Maybe they're not ready for it. And I had to bring that up. And there were times where, well, Steve, get the ball signaling quick. I'm like, no, that's a whole other story. That's a whole other old school I was at. But yeah, that was when the up tempo was coming huge at the time, because that was 2014 or so. Like that was when it was creeping into the high schools and going up tempo and everything else. And then I said, or we can go up tempo and only have 2 plays or 2 run plays and like 3 pass games when we want to go fast. This is all I'm calling.
Yeah. So all those false, the false historians all like give it to like Chip Kelly in Oregon, but anyone that knows the real football knows that it started with Bowden and Rick at Florida State in the Charlie Ward area in the mid 90s. And if you ever read Mark Rick's book, it's pretty good. Not much of a like over the top religious guy, but it's a good read for some of the other things. And he talks about he goes, they just decided to go 2-minute towards the end of the game. They were losing, and Charlie Ward came in and did a great job. Okay. And then they were getting their ass kicked. And so they transitioned to it like in the middle of the second or third quarter versus Florida, and they win the game. They didn't have an answer for it. So he was ready to go just back to the regular offense, like always, under center, pound the rock, power eye. And his wife's like, well, why don't you just do that all the time? Like, and it, like, that's when it dawned on him. His wife's like, it seems really silly not to do what he's good at. And so that's how this up tempo trend started, was with Mark Rick's wife. So if everyone really wants to give credit, she is responsible for the up tempo craze of college football.
She's the reason why.
Yes.
And then who kind of did the RPO stuff? I can't remember who started that either.
I don't know who started it, but it was, I mean, Oregon was huge in it. They get a lot of the credit for it, even with their up tempo. And that's where you had like all the fade balls where they run the receiver off the sideline and bring the other one in like a NASCAR pit crew. So that got the substitution rules to change. But I'm trying to think of some of the other guys.
I heard Holgerson was kind of like, hey,
he's huge into it. Yep, yeah. Dana's huge into it.
Then I know our Bryles. I know that's probably taboo to say his name, but he was doing some of that. A lot of choice routes, though, getting that run and shoot stuff combined in that.
I mean, he just made some bad decisions. Doesn't mean he's a bad football coach. You know?
Yeah, I mean, it's not like he doesn't know offense.
Yeah.
I mean, look at his son. Look what he's doing.
Yeah,
his son
doing fine.
Doing just good. No, I can't remember. I was just I'll venture off into weird things. It's Joe ventures off. I get. Have you ever had too much information and then you like put in a box somewhere in your head? And
always.
Someone told me this. It's like a garage. Guys' minds are like garages. You get all this stuff, put in a box, you put it on the shelf, and then sometimes you'll forget that box is even there.
Yeah,
forget what's there.
And sometimes you put like stuff that you need that go together in multiple boxes, and you can't pull them all from the same. You just can only find some of it.
Right. That's what my brain is. I get too much football information. You
just have to know when this show starts to suck so bad. Like you have to have the courage to be like, Coach Prevost, get off of here. You're actually ruining entertainment right now.
This is not a big time show at all. So it's not going to be because of you. It'll be because of me. They'll be like,
so we can destroy the entertainment world, and then nobody's going to notice.
No, nobody.
No. So you just put these headphones on and made it sound like we're having a podcast when really me and you are just having a Zoom conversation.
We're having a Zoom conversation about. I found during especially COVID and all that stuff, this was like therapy for a lot of people. Like there were some guys I talked to, and at the end, they're like, "Thank you," because this was fun. And then like some I would talk to, I'll never forget. It was Coach Coughlin. He's the D-line coach at Langley Community College.
Yep.
And I talked to him, and at the end, he goes, "Because of our COVID rules, this is the first time I've talked ball in like a month."
Yeah.
And
it was tough.
Yeah.
I mean, I got really good at golf during COVID. I was killing it. So
golf is the hardest sport I've ever had to try to do in my entire life.
We took all of our old linemen and running backs out for golf lessons Wednesday, and that was interesting. Running backs I found are really poor golfers for the most part. That's not their cup of tea.
Were you guys like, because every state was different, were you guys like really strict rules when it came to that?
This is like the most Republican state in the union. Like other people, like I have family in Minnesota and stuff. My wife's family's from Wisconsin. Be like, it's like COVID never even happened here. Like
Mhm.
our restaurants closed down for like a week. Like there was never a bar. There's always a bar open you could go to here. Like that, like life, like we had some different rules and it was tough a little bit in that early spring, like the March and April, where like,
Right.
but like our kids didn't have access to the weight room for like 3 weeks total.
Oh, okay.
Like then they had to like go in shifts but like no, we were not near as
Like
restricted.
Illinois, like
Yeah.
Illinois was. Oh,
Yeah. It was like honestly, it wasn't for me, my life besides work. Like the thing with COVID, I felt really bad for college kids and high school kids. You know, when you have a wife and kids and like, yeah, our careers revolve around that. And that part was enforced with the majority of like older people. Their life doesn't change a lot. Like once you have kids, you don't do anything anyways. Like you work, you come home, you hang out with your family, you go to bed, you do it again the next day. Like,
right.
so, you know, honestly, it's probably good for a lot of people to get spend more time with their kids. I know I got to see my kids like, and man, I am completely convinced of this. I love being a father, but childcare is a totally different animal. Like be at home with my kids all day. Like bless the souls of the people that do that. You
Right.
know, but so we actually hired one of my players as our nanny. So he was like part of our COVID family. And my wife said we really just overpaid him because he didn't like change diapers to a little daughter or cook dinner. So my wife was still doing all this stuff. She said we basically overpaid him to play with my son and myself to keep us busy during COVID. So,
Yeah, Illinois was on like total like lockdown. But Illinois is a very strange state, as you know, like it's so different. People up here, they don't know anything south of I-80. South of I-80 to them is Southern Illinois, which is
mhm.
they just cut it off. So parts of Illinois were different. I knew high schools that were full go in the summer that summer, and they were throwing football around. They were doing this, even though it was breaking the rules. I'm not going to say who did it. I just know for a fact it was happening.
Yeah.
And then they were going to the weight room. They were doing this, and then we're up here, and it was you can't even look at somebody.
Yeah.
You weren't even allowed to do that.
Yeah. It's because you guys are all on top of each other.
Right. Like we weren't allowed to do that. And then some districts said you could go into the weight room. I just threw my pin. And then some said, well, you could be outside. So get the weights outside. So you pull all the weights outside and spray them down. And then you lift outside and you got to put them back. And whatever. I'm not going to get political with it. It was just a lot of things happening. And then the funny part was that fall of next summer, go back to normal. That was the whole thing.
Yeah.
Like we're right back.
It was, I couldn't agree more. So like what was it? So we had the first summer, but then the summer of 21, like when we first started having camps, because people were still masking and stuff like that all the way through the spring. And even like in the fall, we were wearing masks on trips. And all of a sudden I'm like, okay, we had a camp, like, and these kids come from all over the country.
Mm-hmm.
And so then we start off with 40 or 50 guest coaches, Division II, Division III schools. All of us are sitting in our team room, which we don't let our team sit in there. Like we went in shifts, like
Right.
team meeting, showers, the whole works. But then the next day after doing that, we have all these guys in there. Then we have 250 kids all inside the dome. And we're shaking all these kids' hands. I'm like, it's like the COVID never had. One person has COVID here, we're all going down.
Right.
Like, it's just like in a blink of an eye. Okay, I guess this is okay now.
Well, because like Illinois, we had all of our seasons in that spring. So they kept kicking the can down the road. And then end of January, they said, okay, here we go. Start with basketball first.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was an overlap. You would have a week and a half overlap of the next sport. So the next sport was football. So with that week and a half, you're trying to practice football, but they're still playing basketball games. Then when football, at the end of football, that week and a half, you have baseball and track going on. And so it was just a cluster, but between the end of January, beginning of June, all those sports happened at once.
It's gotta be hard too, especially in those smaller schools where those coaches coach all three, and like you, that
Yeah,
like I can't imagine the organizational factor, or like those coaches that are ADs that are trying to now make all these scheduling changes, but yet they have coaching responsibilities.
Yeah, the bigger schools up here in the suburbs, like the school I coach at's maybe 2,000 kids, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything. We're struggling to get football like numbers up in sports, but there's some schools here that don't struggle with that. They were fine. But where I grew up, where my high school had 300 kids, and those type, if you're doing all three sports, they were like, we can't have this overlap because it's gonna kill the sports because these kids have to choose
Yeah.
like which one they're gonna do. So it was a cluster. And then for me, I was coaching track at the time. I got done June 4th, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And then they said, okay, June 7th, football starts back up in the summer. Everything's back to normal. So we had to like go back to normal. So June 7th, football starts. And then like June 9th, we had basketball camps again. So everything was just like it never happened. Summer shootouts, they had to wear masks for a while. And then they said, we're done with that. So the whole summer was normal until we started school. And then the masks came back. And then halfway through school, they said it was fine. So again, not political. It was just weird how quickly it was back to normal. And
I was in a high school in Iowa during junior recruiting, and I was there at like 7:15 talking to the high school coach. And there's people on top of each other, big high school, and they're all wearing masks, or nobody's wearing a mask, and they're all on top of each other. This bell rings at 7:30, and like you would have thought like it was a calling. Everybody digs in their pocket, their bags, like, and digs out a mask. And I'm like, look at the coach. And I always carried mine in my pocket just in case. He's like, yeah, COVID doesn't start here until 7:30. And then we enforce it.
Oh, it was crazy. I better stop talking about it before I get in trouble because I know how people are. But anyway.
It's all right. You just told us no one's listening to this anyway. So I mean, what's the
some people do. It depends. But yeah, that's the podcast thing. Just it kind of became like therapy, and it still kind of is. Like I talk to coaches in the summer, and they love it because like I'm talking to somebody different. Maybe I can give whatever I have out. So it was pretty good to start this. I didn't know how much time. We were talking about Coach Bancher doing 3 a day. That happened to me last summer. There was times I was doing 10 a week just to try to record with people. Yeah. And then I wasn't going to do a spring sport originally this year. And I was like, I'm just going to do podcasts. I can get a hold of coaches easier. I can do this. And I started coaching baseball. And then I realized there was no time.
Yeah.
Unless people wanted to jump on at 9 at night. That wasn't happening.
Well, and the other thing is like those podcasts are what they are, but if the person's sweet to talk to, awesome. But if you get like a shitty person, you're just dragging on, crappy person. You're just dragging on forever, trying to get him to say something. You're just like, so just brought you on here to talk to myself? Or...
Right. Sometimes that's me, but that's okay. So for you guys, you're setting up tempo, zoom and spread. What do you guys marry in your run game? Like what's the main run game for you guys?
We have what we call our 4 core, and it's like which are inside zone, mid zone, and then we have power and counter. And then off of that, we have all different kinds of tags, and we run the different kinds of power, the different kinds of counter. We have 4 or 5 different zones, and we have tags off our mid zone. But like we have a true 4 core of inside, mid zone, and then power counter.
Now, for your guys' different zones, because I was dabbling with this with the school I'm at now, but I couldn't do it. I couldn't tell them like this and this are the same, but they're not the same. You know, like mid zone and inside zone, like they're a little different.
Mm-hmm.
Is it mainly like your mid zone is more double team oriented rather than the other one? Or are they both?
No, like some people would look at our inside zone and like it would be the old argument, like, oh, that's duo. I'm like, I don't really know what duo is. Like at this point, like I'm just like, I don't know. This is how we call it inside zone. If you want to call it duo, I don't give 2 shits how you break it down.
Right.
I don't know if I'm supposed to swear in here, but so like for us, you know, there's certain things like when we run inside zone, we're trying to horizontally expand the front side. So we'll go, I talk to those guys, hey, they're aiming points, and that's where they want to drive their hands and eyes through is going to be the sternum. And then they can fall back to the backside number because they want to win their hips with a strong backside hip and a final shove at the end of the play. On the backside, their aiming point is the sternum, and they're trying to win vertical push. Now, if we're running zone right, this is what we're trying to create. It's really like ISO without a lead blocker. We're trying to create horizontal distortion front side, and then we're trying to kick the crap out of the double team on the backside. Where we'll still combo the play side, but the combo's like flat. The guys like teeing them up, push the hip over, and just get it out. Or then we're trying to get vertical on the front side. The front side of mid zone, we ideally the best thing to run into, like I love teams, and when we get in 10 personnel sets, they give us a 4-1 box. And then play the 3 technique to the back, like, oh please.
Right.
Like it's just like it's like you guys want me to run the ball. Like please, like I don't understand this day. There's like 2 things on defense I don't get. Like why you would ever line up in a 4-1 box with the 3 to the back and give everybody all their run game that they want, and why any defensive coordinator ever runs gut cross. I think that is the dumbest blitz of all time. Like, first and foremost, there's not a whole lineman in the country. It's like the only blitz defenses have never figured out like to not show.
Right.
Like you've watched a bunch of film, and there's a lot of blitzes they don't show. Anybody that's watched any lick of football can look at, oh, that's gut cross. I coached defense for a while. Same thing. You can't get the backers to stop. Like we have a check. Like we'll check something, a purpose. I'm not going to say that in here, but a purposeful call to that because it's easy.
Right.
Like so that was a tangent. Sorry.
No,
But
it's okay.
those are the 2 things. Like I've never understood defensively why people do those things. But so we're trying to really, we now play side. We have a play side number aiming point, and we man the play side tackle. And we talked to him about his block angles through the backside hip to the play side number so he can defend his inside. And he wants to get him what we call on a base finish, which is his hips are about 45 degrees back play side. But if the guy runs, then he'll move the point outside. And then a vertical combo with the play side guard and center. And then we open and run to seal the backside. So like when we broke it down, we actually took the play side of it's from Ole Miss. The middle 3 of it is from Michigan, and the backside of it is from Western Kentucky.
Okay.
So
I'm really dumb, so I break things down very simply. So similar, because I am putting in wide zone this year, so I have to so in a way, to me, your front side almost looks that way ish, like your tackle. He's just turning and trying to get him off to open up the hole. Everybody else is double teaming.
Yeah. So no,
I told you I was dumb.
No, it's all right. I did a poor job. Here, I'm gonna do this. This will be easier rather than me.
See, now people start listening.
Yeah, no doubt. See all my shit. That's all right. There we go. You see that?
Yes.
All right. We have more camera angles than anyone in the country, so bear with us. This is another camera after you've already seen the 3 camera angles. All right, so here they line up like, oh, perfect, right?
Right.
So now we're running our mid zone. So we're talking about him. He's going to base block. So his aiming point, when we talk about we want lateral bucket, and we call a bucket actually a vertical step. We're different than other people that way. I actually want him to step through the bucket. And his aiming point is the play side number through the guy's backside hip because he's manned.
Gotcha. Okay.
He is going to load vertical step, and we talk about wanting to break our collarbone in his hip crease. All right. And then he'll angle out to the backer. He's going to open, drop step. He wants to attach his left hip to the guard's right hip to finish on a base combo. He also wants to finish on that base. And then these guys will open, drop, seal, and he'll actually seal, sift if he's not getting pressure from the D end. Where if we were running mid zone, or regular zone, now we always call our combo out one. All right. So he's really vertical. He takes over, and they're vertical to trigger this. like I tell this guy, do not touch him. He's trying to get him this way. He'll go tee this guy up, bang it, and then climb. So like, this is an example of like our mid zone. I said, I don't know if this is good or not, but these are just some more combos. Like right there. So the tackle goes inside. I want to get to that play side number aiming point. And then what we teach our back is open and close window. So open window is right here.
Right.
If this guy were to keep playing outside and he had to run with them, which we'll see some of those, now it's a closed window. So then you just take your first time, you take the open window until a window closes, then you take the next open window.
Okay.
Like here our left guard does a decent job getting vertical, but he doesn't do a good job getting off the hold. But the center does a good job trying to get over. And like here, this is a bad read by the back. Open window, he needs to blow this off the play side.
Right.
I'm pretty sure you got face mask there. I'm not for certain.
Maybe.
But you're getting the same thing here. So we always talk about big thing is this guy, I want him to take. So the more this guy is, the more it's going to be vertical. He's taking this combo to his backer. Okay. So he works his hips to try to win the block, seal, and we're off. We end up throwing this one. Like here, I don't like how 75, he just loses the block right away. Instead of like, I don't mind if they throw the sink, and that's what we call it when he pushes out, but I'd rather him do it later after he loses the block. Like he never tries to get to the place at number. He just lazily falls backside. And that's really what like the front side to inside zone should look like. See if here, I'll get you some different formations so we're not just running the same thing all the time.
Yeah, because me learning wide zone, it was just the same terminology. So that's why I was being dumb. Like, oh, because I had to dive into it big this offseason.
So now we get the 4-2 box. And now these guys are taken to their combo. Like here, this guard is wrong or tackle's wrong. They should be coming up because they add on to the count in the 4-2. And he sees it late. That's why he gets tripped up. He's like, oh shit. I'm trying to get you a different box here. Problem is if we go FIB, we can get this 4-1 box, so we take advantage of it. Like here, this is our NFL left tackle. He gets the play set number, he fights, but it allows him to really create the movement play side to get off that point. Where on the other hand, if you look at our inside zone, it's more like a push, but we have regular like 5-person. I don't like it as much, but we ran a lot with a lot of success. So now we're trying to create movement here, and then win this block.
Now
we
on
teach
that
us scooch on the backside, but these are all my threes. My freshmen are out here rolling right now. And then they all like, we're a man zone team.
Okay.
So like you can see like here, the center knows he's got to carry back. He's bent at the waist, so he does it slowly. But the right guard doesn't even worry about it. So like here, this guy works. So he's like, okay, we'll force that as part of the push side when we get movement away. And then you'll see him try to seal this off. And now we've split that lane.
Okay.
I don't know. Does that answer your question? I felt bad. I didn't really.
No, it does. I was like I said, the terminology was similar to what I've dove into all summer or all off season. So I was putting two together, but that makes sense. And then I was going to ask, like, so I tried to do the uncovered stuff with our kids, but they were young last year. So, like, for me, last year it was if we're going inside zone left and he's head up or left, you're covered. We don't look back unless they ask you for help, if that made sense. Like, if you were uncovered, the center, if you're the guard, says, "Hey, we need a double right here." I was cool with it. But then what would happen was they got confused, like, well, he didn't call anything. I wasn't supposed to block here and this and that. So this year I have to do where it's like head up, shade, you're covered. So like backside shade, he's covered. So we have to get him. Now if he's in the gap, you're uncovered.
Yeah. So let me do this here for you. I get what you're saying. So what we do is like I define it for these guys is this: head up covered directly over line, and then they have their rules off head up covered. And then we talk about play side covered, backside covered, and then uncovered are the four things that falls into. So it's not like, so it doesn't get all confusing, but there's really the four options. The guy's either head up,
right?
You're covered play side. All right. Okay. If he's head up, you're going to try to force yourself to be backside covered.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If he is, so head up, I want to force myself to be backside covered because I know I got somebody coming with me. All right. If I'm play side covered, I'm winning the block. If I'm backside covered, now I'm low delivering eyes to backer. And if I'm uncovered, now I'm 3-step attached to hip.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Last year it was, for me personally, it was that would have been uncovered. There's a backside shade, you're uncovered because that's not the way we're going.
Yeah.
Unless they ask for help. That was my whole thing.
Yeah.
And then our lower levels just to know who to block because they were like, well, if we're going to the right, but he's on my inside shade here, you're telling me I'm uncovered. And I said, yeah. So we're knifing technique, center takes over, boom. So this year I have to tell them, you know, if that happens, you're covered technically. And my hope is for overcompensating that it becomes a double team vertically, if that makes sense. That's what I have to do.
Yeah.
But then like wide zone, they tell you, no, you're uncovered if he's backside shade because you have to get farther wider.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, oh, so I was doing it right. I was just doing it for the different play. Like I was doing it right. It was just the wrong play.
Yeah.
Because when I first learned inside zone like everybody else, it was take a step that way and go. Like you didn't care about anything else.
And we used to be that way too. And it's just the hard part is and the fact of the matter is, and I tell people this all the time, if a kid is 6'4", 300 and super athletic, he wants to play D tackle.
Right.
And there's spots for him. Like we are outmanned up front a lot of times offensively than we are versus D linemen. Like, say what you want, Aaron Donald would be a hell of an interior lineman.
Yes.
You know, so the fact of the matter is, like, I think it's really, really tough if you think you're going to go swing with the big boys, trying to keep just run on a track. Like, so that's why I've really switched to, like, we have identifications. We mark even as a tempo team, we mark everybody up. Now we have chaos calls, we call it. Like, so because we play so fast, if people aren't lined up, we have basically, they're called camp rules, chaos rules, where it's truly, even our gap scheme has it, like true gap rules. Our protections has it. So, and that's like one of our center calls. They'll make a box call, or if it's like just if they're subbing, not lined up, chaos.
Mm-hmm.
And then they follow the rules. And that's how like I install with our freshmen. So at least like the right guard pulls in power, like, and you know, and then build off of everything else. So,
right. Yeah. Sometimes I have to describe inside zone as like a gap too, like we're protecting the gap.
Mm-hmm.
So, because that's what happened at a school I was at up here. We went 9-0 that year because we switched it. When I got there, they were doing inside zone, always stepping right or left. And he goes, what about double teaming? So we double teamed it and it worked beautifully. So we were like, okay, no, that's where I got those rules. And so I brought them over to the next school I was at and they did it. Then the school I'm at now, they didn't talk about it that way. So I said, well, this is how I'm going to do it. So what started happening was you're dealing with sophomores playing varsity and there's a guy back here, they're down blocking really hard. Well, then that opens up a lane for the linebacker to come through and all that stuff. So that's why I have to change it. I had to say, like, we're protecting this gap. You realize that? Like, even though there might be a guy here, our eyes have to be at this gap because he'll just fly through.
Well, I think it's something I talk to our coordinator about all the time. Like, as high school coaches, ones that major in zone or run zone, even, hats off. Like, the amount of time that we spend on zone, the amount of time that goes into zone per yard that we gain in games is infinitely more than any of our gap schemes. Now, I think they're important at our level of union, but our kids we spend a ton of time, like teaching power. Okay, block down, have your eyes in the backside gap. Like,
Right.
it is pretty remedial. Like,
Right.
you know, it doesn't take a lot, but there's a lot to zone because you're asking people to make decisions and differentiate.
I got you. Yeah. I'm going to sit there and say it's my fault. Yeah, I could sit here and say the kids were doing this or that, but I realized like, hey, this is what they're doing. So how do I fix it? Well, we're going to talk about protecting the gap, even though it's not true zone when you talk about protecting the gap. And then they wanted to run power. And I said, cool, power's gap down backer. We're moving on. Like, how you doing moving on? It's just gap down backer.
Yeah.
We're just down blocking or into that backer.
So much easier. You make a great point. You can blame the kids all you want, but like the kids aren't the ones getting fired.
No, like I could sit here and our head coach always says, tell me what they can do, what they can't do, which then we get in arguments because I'm like, well, I have to tell you what they can't do in order to tell you what they can do. So I kind of, you know, we butt heads a little bit, not in a mean way, but he's like, no, tell me what they can do, not what they can't do. And I said, I have to tell you what they can't before I get to that point. So like last year I said, well, hey, this is what they're doing. Yeah, it's not what I want. I can get mad at them. But then in the off season, if I don't fix it, then it's on me.
You're the problem then.
Right, because like I'm the O-line run game coordinator, so I have to put it all together. So when something doesn't work, it's on me. And I can sit there and say, well, we're not this, or this. So how do I cater to what can we do to fix it? So this summer, like you said, this summer, all I'm doing is zone stuff. And then at the end, I'll get into more gap scheme with them. Mm-hmm. Like you said, a lot of time has to be put into realizing when they're uncovered, covered, what's happening here for high school kids. Like,
well, I think college kids too. The thing that zone does is zone teaches you base run fundamentals and it teaches your eyes. So it carries over to gap scheme so much quicker with less rules. Mm-hmm. But even if you just did gap scheme, it doesn't make it like now you're teaching all those things that you have with gap scheme in the gap scheme portion of it. It's not like, okay, just run gap scheme because it's easier. Gap scheme is easier if you run zone well. If your kids know the rules of zone, because they carry over so easily. Now we're not like one of like, you know, I'm had some time like know some people at the University of Ohio who actually like do zone combos for their gap combos. We don't go that far with it. We actually have gap combos, but you know, the eye training of it is, you know, like I always tell guys, man, you can be the worst athlete in the world. You can control your eyes. Like be disciplined enough to have your eyes where I tell you to have your eyes, and you can be pretty successful.
Right. I'm also changing. I added the scooch to get to the double team this year.
That's tough. We do it. And I got it from Coach Rudolph too. But I keep going back and forth on it. Like, I love our kids that are good at it. It's so cool. But like the kids that are not like great at it, that like if their feet don't land right, man, they kind of get their face blown off.
Yes. That is true. And again, I'm probably one of the dumbest O-line coaches you will ever meet because I'm big on skip pulling for power. And so I was teach them skip pull. And then when I talked to Coach Rudolph about the scooch, I was like, how can I sell this to the kids where they're not shuffling or clicking their feet together? And I said, oh, I'm going to tell them it's like half of a skip pull. And they said, well, what does that mean? I said, I'm still bringing this foot back. Instead of bringing it all the way back, we're going to step here and go. Like, we're going to do it quick. Yeah. And some kids it clicked. And then some were just so asphyxiated on the skip pull because I drilled into their brains, they would skip pull sometimes. And I'm like, well, this ain't working. And so then this year for power, I may not skip pull. I may go to the sickle or the shuffle instead. And so that way they focus more on the actual scooch technique.
So we skip pull or shuffle, and I taught it the same way because I cross train everybody. Mm-hmm. But like our two really good tackles never cross train. It's like play left tackle. Like, we're not going to put you somewhere else. Where
Right.
everybody else, like, we'll fill holes. Like, we'll move our center to left tackle and get our best 5 out there. But like, that guy really never moves. But to me, it's strength too. It's timing. It's such a timing of, they know like a feel, and it's hard to drill because you're not getting the speed. It's hard to drill the timing of the angle that you need to take, because like Coach Rudolph, like he says, well, you can't lose ground. I think there's some teams that you play, if you don't lose ground and you have the vertical splits that he talks about, you're going to get split. And so and I don't tell them to, but they know how to cheat that a little bit. They're just kind of one of the things they do naturally. And that's helped us out a little bit, like really the feel for it. So we've gotten good at it. So I'm not going to change it now, but there's some growing pains. And you watch my younger guys, like, man, they'll get it's like the one time you're like, man, we look like a bunch of softies. We're just getting our doors blown off. Like, it looks like they're like literally drowning in the pool with the defensive lineman's face in their chest.
Yeah.
They get frustrated. They're like, this sucks. Like, this,
Yeah.
like at first, they like it now, but at first, like, this blows. Like, I'm just getting you just have me do this, and this deep tackle is just crushing me. So,
yeah, I have a guy we converted to a guard, so he's athletic, and believe it or not, he's like the only one that can really do it. Because, man, as quickly as his feet moves, puts it in the ground, and gets vertical, he gets right into their hip and drives.
And that's the thing, like, how fast can they transition? If they can't transition, as soon as that step hits to get that fourth step vertical, whew.
Yeah, and then we have some kids that are tall, so they stand up.
Yes.
I have not all of them. When I say I have like 2 that are like tall, but like they'll just shoot up, and I'm like, no, and that's where I come from and go, do I even want to do this anymore? Because they're not like, that's making them stand up when they do it. My guards don't stand up; it's my tackles.
Yeah, and our shortest offensive starting out with linemen 6'5.5". So like when you start, we do ours in the shoots, because otherwise I was like, this is just like pissing in the wind if you don't do that.
Right.
So that's like, we started when we rep it, like the footwork stuff. It's a big thing. I have them do a lot in the off season. And then like when freshmen come in, I let them like dabble in it, but like the defensive guys don't want them to do it on scout team. And like our scout teams ran off of our offense. Basically they find like plays, just tell the guys go. But they don't scooch, because it's like, when you're outmatched, that's a tough block. That's a really hard block if you're physically outmatched.
Right.
If you're not, if you outmatch that person, it can be pretty freaking cool.
Yeah, and I use it to overtake a double team. This is the way I'm trying to sell it too. Like, hey, you're asking this guy for help if we have that shade or whatever for a double team. And I'm telling you, if you're far away, that's how we're like, I just have to sell it. Like, this is how you're going to get to him quick. You're getting into his hip. This guy's going to explode into him with his shoulder and stuff, and we move on. So hopefully that helps you. But you said if you get one, I've already seen it this summer doing it again. Because I tried to do it last year as the season started. I didn't even do it last summer. It was the season, and get into the season talking to Coach Rudolph. I was like, he told me, he said, don't do it. He's like, wait till next year.
It's expensive, man.
It is. He goes, don't do it till next summer. Well, being an impatient person that I am, I'm getting into the season. I go, nope, doing it now. And it was a dumb mistake. I learned very quickly. That was dumb.
So we just hired the Ron Crook, who's the tight ends coach here, was the O-line coach at Cincinnati when they went to the playoffs this past year. Really good O-line coach, really smart. And he's like, man, I see you guys scooch. I've never liked it, but you've got enough invested to it. Like, I think you should keep it. Like, it's pretty good. He's like, I've never done it just because, like, I never wanted to take the investment on it. So,
yeah. So I'm using it to help my guys get as quickly as possible to the point of attack, and that's what it's for. And I'm selling it to them, and I'm making them feel good about themselves. Like I said, I have a guard that's very athletic because he's also going to play. He's middle linebacker type, so that's the type of guard I have. The rest of them are O linemen. And I'm trying to tell them, I'm trying to help you guys be athletic. We don't have to look like it, but we can be athletic. So we have to run. We have to move and run. And that's how I sell it. Now it's just getting them to know when to do it. Like, you don't load step here. Now you scooch when it's far away. So I have to quiz them every day, like when we're out there. All right, what technique are you about to use here? Load step. I'm like, no, scooch. Like why would you load step when he is a whole gap away from you? So when you said scooch, I was like, oh, he must have got from Coach Rudolph, because I had not talked about it till I had talked to him.
Yeah, no, a lot of our stuff that we do is from him. I ain't that guy. He is now they're way more like, we don't teach our inside zone like they do at all. But we're way more a lot of our run and pass work fundamentals come from Coach Rudolph. So
yeah, that's my next thing I'm tweaking. See, I came in as the asshole I am, and I'm changing everything as soon as I get there. It was the head coach got hired. He was already on staff, and I'm coming in, and they're like, this, because COVID again, kind of, if you were a new coaching staff when COVID hit, there was no way that you were.
Yeah, you couldn't recover because you didn't have the prior relationships to keep guys doing stuff.
Right. So when I got there, some guys that already coached there before were on staff, so they just kind of did what they did before. The only thing they tweaked was the defense, because the head coach is the defensive guy. He goes, we're going to tweak the defense. Offense, they just did what they did. And I said, okay. And then last summer, since everything was back to normal, we tried to have a normal off season, and I started to tweak it, and I continue to tweak it. But I'm the jerk coming in, changing everything. Every day I come in and I say, let's change it. We got to do this. We got to do this. But that's just, yeah. So with the mid zone, will you do option out of it or just straight up hand the ball off?
We do speed option, not this though.
Okay.
Like our speed option, we talk about it all the time. We practice it in critical situations on Saturdays.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when we practice it. But it's really zone opposite. We pitched it out there. It's like a glorified razor screen for us. And we've had really good luck with it.
Yeah, we just did power read to get out there.
Okay. And we used to do that. To me, the read guy always chases it down for like 4 yards. So I get frustrated. Like I love getting the tackle up there and letting him take out that first backer.
Yeah. School I was at, we would do that with inside zone. You could run inside zone the opposite, arc release the back way.
That's what we do.
That's exactly what we did. Not now, but we did at another school was we would do that.
Yeah, and then we call it jab replace your butt with the defensive lineman's butt to arc up and get the backer. Is like the easiest way to steal yards. Is like zero install. Like even if we accidentally cut the 3 technique loose, who cares? He like squeezes down like he's getting red and he's never back into play. Like some of the boxes look terrible. It's like, okay, if your receivers can block their DBs, you get yards. And the quarterback never has to keep the ball because nobody sees enough option to like, nobody's going to spend, you know, I coach Division II outside backers, like, and they're true DN outside backer types. And you face enough option back in the, you know, early 2010s in the Division II level where you taught kids how to feather the pitch.
Yep.
That's a hell of an investment on the defense side of the ball when nobody runs option anymore.
Right.
So like it's like they just attack the guy with the ball, you pitch it out there and the quarterback doesn't get hit. So
we did that, and then we would just do bash with it. We would just run bash with it, but we still arc release that tackle. So quarterback can run behind everybody else, you hand it off. And then we started adding a wing to it, and they both arc released. So now linebacker's flowing over, he's flowing over. And then if we really wanted to run wham off of it, if they're being really aggressive, sitting there, have the wing just hit them. Like, again, we were 9-0 for a reason at one school we were at. We could just draw some in the dirt and be like, yep, go do this with those type of kids. But that was my one of my favorite plays was running that arc release back, quarterback can keep it or go. It was one of my favorites. Then if that linebacker wanted to fly and you just we would just call a snag route right behind him.
Mm-hmm. Coach Steve, I'm gonna have to let you go because I got to take care of this with my phone. I am more than willing to pop back up on here next week if you have time, if you want to. If you're like, this sucked, no way, that's fine too. I'm free the entire next week. If you want to do it later, we can. If you want to do a different time later, we can. I enjoyed it, but like I said, this is with 3 weeks going into the season, we got to make sure that we have this buttoned up.
Nope, you guys are busy. I appreciate it. You can hop back on anytime you feel like it. You just send me a message and we'll make it happen. So I enjoyed it. Hopefully you got something out of it.
Yeah,
But I
it was
appreciate it.
awesome. Yeah,
I
like I
appreciate
said,
it.
I look forward to future times. So
Yep, well, I appreciate it. I'll hop back on anytime. Guys, go follow Coach. I didn't even get into the hippo stuff. That's what we'll talk about next time. Is telling me about the hippo culture.
all right, we will do the hippo culture. So we will yeah, you can follow me at Coach Prevost, and you'll see enough hippo stuff on my Twitter page to go wow. You can see the giant hippo above my right shoulder here behind me. But this often, like I have probably 12 hungry hippo games. People give them to me because they think it's like a cool creative idea, which it is. It's really sweet, but it's like there's only so many.
Right.
All this but like we've gotten into, people have like made us golf balls and t-shirts.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it's getting a little out of hand, but our guys like it, so we roll with it. But yeah, definitely love to talk about that, and then building that up. And I got a great group of guys, and it was fun to talk ball. Ever since we started this hippo thing, a lot of times that's the only thing people want to talk to me about. And so it's kind of nice to talk ball a little bit. But since you were gracious enough to talk ball with me, I'll be happy to share the hippos with you.
Absolutely. We'll get you back on anytime. You can discuss hippos with me, because we're O-linemen, so I'll talk about anything O-line. So it's about it, that's what I am.
That's fantastic. So, well, Coach, I look forward to future times.
Yep. Thank you so much. Thanks everybody for watching or listening. We'll see you next time.